certified asthma and allergy friendly. It's our new standard of clean. Call about our
Introducing the critically acclaimed. Being British, it's not in our nature to boast. Fortunately, we don't have to. Introducing the critically acclaimed Jaguar XE. Experience the XE for yourself at your Jaguar retailer.
Irresistible King's Hawaiian bread. Try our new sauces in 4 delicious flavors, like Big Island Lava, a spicy sauce with a touch of island sweetness. Buy them online or at select retailers.
Mahindra is the #1 selling tractor in the world, and I highly recommend it.
Work smarter, not harder, with the toughest tractor on earth, and get 0 interest for up to 84 months, or up to $6,700 cash back in June, plus a 5-year powertrain warranty on every Mahindra tractor.
I've got over 1,000 hours on it. The thing has withstood all the conditions, all the elements that I put it through.
Hurry in for special June-only savings.
Discover Europe's grand rivers on a deluxe Emerald Waterways cruise. Uncover a world where innovation meets comfort. Enjoy the views from the sun deck or heated pool and relax in the cinema or lounge in the evening. Awarded Best Riverline for value. Savor all that's included, from tours to drinks with meals and gratuities. For a limited time, fly round trip to Europe for only $495 and receive €200 to spend on board. See your travel professional or visit emeraldwaterways.com.
Hey guys, come on, you're holding up the entire golf course. All that cream is doing is stinging your arm and making my eyes water. And do you know how many volts are in that thing? And you, I don't know what you're trying to do, but I can tell you're doing it wrong. Come on, gentlemen, up your game. Do what I do. Use Blue Emu. It's easier than you think, and you won't sting.
Before it's history, it's news.
Thank you very much.
It was fantastic. We had the Bellevue Baptist Church Choir with us. We had the young Elvis and the later Elvis. Little bloated. What's your name?
Tim.
Tim. Do you have a last name?
Elvis.
Okay, thank you. And
Andrew Robinson.
okay. All right, great. Being in Memphis and doing an Elvis impersonation is daunting, isn't it?
It's very much so. He's from there, so it's very
Hey, don't forget about tomorrow's show. Donald Trump, Mike Huckabee, and Judge Napolitano. And stay Facebook Live. We'll have the After the Show show. It's going to be great.
Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow morning.
Go get him, guys.
So long.
Thank y'all for tuning in.
Good morning, everyone. Here we go, a week after a terrorist gunned down 49 people in Orlando. A showdown today over gun rights in America. The Senate takes up 4 different bills on guns today. As we say good morning, hope you had a great weekend. Look who's back in person.
Great.
Welcome.
Good to be back. Good morning, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum. So as Congress takes on guns, trying to prevent another massacre like Orlando, the Senate will vote on 4 bills today. 2 come from Democrats, 2 come from Republicans. Gun rights advocates say that it would not stop a terrorist like Omar Mateen.
They don't care about the law. Laws didn't stop them in Boston. Laws didn't stop them in San Bernardino, where you had every type of gun control law you could have. And they didn't stop them in Paris, where people can't even own guns. They had fully automatic guns, they had ICDs, they had explosives. I mean, these bad guys we're facing, they don't say, oh gosh, they passed a law. Oh gosh, I don't think I can do it. It's like what we're doing with this debate on the Hill right now, it's like they're trying to stop a freight train with a piece of Kleenex.
And this stunner today, the FBI is set to release the transcripts of phone calls between the Orlando shooter and police. But you will not hear the whole story of what was said. Loretta Lynch says they will edit out any references to Islamic extremism and the pledge of allegiance to ISIS.
So Byron York, chief political correspondent, Washington Examiner, Fox News contributor. Byron, good day to you. 4 bills to be considered Does any of the four have a better chance of passing?
Some have a better chance, but none has a good chance. So some of them are basically retreads of old bills, basically for universal background checks or the so-called gun show loophole. Some of them are for that. Others are a little more related to the idea of a person who is or has been on the terror watch list buying a gun. But it looks like they will all be held to the 60-vote standard in the Senate, meaning they will likely not get there. And remember, to become law, they have to go through the House. And that's just not going to happen with a heavy Republican majority.
So we just heard from the NRA. Here's John Carl, ABC, with Senator Murphy from Connecticut, who is one of the leaders of this effort now. Watch.
Your proposal would have done nothing in the case of Orlando. It would have done nothing to stop the killing in San Bernardino. And in fact, is unrelated to the killing in Newtown. Why are we focusing on things that have nothing to do with the massacres that we are responding?
Well, so first of all, we can't get into that trap. I disagree. I think if this proposal had been into effect, it may have stopped this shooting. But we can't get into the trap in which we are forced to defend a proposal simply because it didn't stop the last tragedy.
Is it a trap? Or not?
Well, this is something you've heard a lot from the gun control advocates, saying you cannot specifically tailor a bill that would apply specifically to something that has happened in the recent past, and that their own measures would stop violence in the future, not just terrorist attacks, but other criminal violence and suicides as well. So this is something where they're trying to generalize from Orlando into a larger gun control argument, but it's probably just not going to happen in this Congress right now.
How does this issue of the censoring the transcripts come up today? Who's going to take on that, and how's that going to be received, Byron?
I think this could attract a lot more controversy and attention than anything over the gun control measures today. First of all, we're not going to hear anything. The Attorney General said she was going to release edited transcripts of these calls, and she said quite openly that they were going to edit out his references to terrorism, his pledge of allegiance to the Islamic State, and I think that's going to be criticized all around.
It's a pretty remarkable position,
Absolutely.
Right? You might hear from Democrats as well. Byron, thank you so much.
And the press too, Bill.
No doubt. Analysis there. Byron York leading our coverage as we begin a new week here. Thank you.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump suggesting that profiling could be one way to prevent another terror attack on U.S. soil. It's, of course, a controversial idea, but the presumptive Republican nominee says it has worked elsewhere and may have been of use here.
I think profiling is something that we're going to have to start thinking about as a country, and other countries do it. And you look at Israel and you look at others, and they do it, and they do it successfully. And, I hate the concept of profiling, but we have to start using common sense, and we have to use our heads.
Senior national correspondent John Roberts joins us live. So, John, are there signs that Trump could be facing sort of a new challenge at this convention? So many layers to the Trump story today, but let's start with that one.
Absolutely. And, you look at what the delegates are doing, and it was talked about a few weeks ago. It didn't look like it was real, but now it does look like it's real. There was a conference call last night. 1,000 people were on it, not all of them delegates. But here's the way basically that it's breaking down, according to a member of the Rules Committee that I know. Donald Trump has probably got solid almost 900 delegates, party regulars. This is RNC delegates are about 901. But then there's about 683 either cruise delegates or Stop Trump delegates. And these are the ones that are trying to cause trouble at the convention. What they really need to do is they need to convince the Rules Committee that the delegates should be unbound going into the convention. And if that is the case, then maybe they can unseat Trump. But Donald Trump talked about this yesterday, and he said he doesn't see this really going anywhere. Let's listen to what Trump said.
Well, heck, I've said this a lot. Run a campaign we can all be proud of. Run a campaign that's inclusive and aspirational.
So that was Paul Ryan talking yesterday about what Donald Trump would need to do in order to have a campaign that he really believes that he could get on board with. because we've seen in the past Paul Ryan has kind of been a little wishy-washy in his support for Donald Trump, but at the moment he's with him, thinking that if he were to not be with him, it would create an irreparable chasm.
They kind of don't know. I mean, you've got Donald Trump looking at Paul Ryan and the things that he said there and saying, well, I don't know why he and McConnell aren't really with me, but he thinks he's got the numbers to basically steamroll anything that they might come up with, right?
Yeah. Well, we've talked about a contested convention in the past. It looks like this is going to be a brokered convention, though not in the true sense of a brokered convention. When I talk about a brokered convention, I mean the Donald Trump forces will get together with the RNC forces to try to defeat the non-Trump or the never-Trump crowd. So it's going to be interesting.
Something else.
And the meetings of the Rules Committee the week before the convention will be very important to watch, so we'll keep a close eye on those.
Amazing. It's going to be amazing. And to Cleveland we go. John, thank you very much.
Thanks,
we'll see you soon.
7 past, and hello, Cleveland. The long civic nightmare is over for that city.
Rebound tip taken by Spades. Final seconds. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
LeBron James finally did it. Wow. Cleveland Cavaliers made history last night. They came back from a deep hole to beat the Golden State Warriors, taking home the first major sports title for that city since 1964. First ever for the NBA franchise, too. James, a nearby native of Akron, Ohio, like many Clevelanders last night, balling like a baby. The MVP leading his team from a 3-1 deficit, which has never happened before. And even though the game was played out in Oakland, the Cleveland faithful celebrated at home. 18,000 here. Watch. Just so you know, that's where they play their home games,
that's
okay?
Right.
And they had a sold-out arena at the Quicken Loans Arena last night, watching the game on the home court. Outside the city of Cleveland, packed the streets around the queue, celebrating well into the night. Everything remained mostly peaceful.
Good.
Cover of the Plain Dealer, simply, you better believe it. Now, next up for the city, Donald Trump and the Republican National Committee exactly 1 month from now. Matt Finn's live at a Midwest Bureau with more on this, and the city of Cleveland just beginning celebrations, but the Cavs Stadium is already being prepped for that convention. Matt.
Yeah, good morning, Bill. Wow, that series was just an instant classic. That came down to the final minute of Game 7. Good for Cleveland, bringing home the first championship in franchise history. And while the win happened last night in California, back home in Cleveland, like you said, the Cavs Stadium is already being transformed in preparation for the Republican National Convention in less than a month. About 250 people will work inside the Quicken Loans Arena each day to convert the court to a convention floor. The Republican Party says it typically needs 6 to 8 weeks to convert a space for a convention. This year, it only has 4, but it says it will be ready. And the RNC also released a congratulatory statement, in part saying this title is a testament to the Cavs' heart and teamwork, and this team is just the first winner Cleveland will produce this summer. So a little foreshadowing there, if you will, Bill.
I mentioned there's not a lot of violence in the streets. Like to see that, certainly, as they celebrated last night. Police they will beef up security for that convention in a few weeks. How is that going, Matt?
Yeah, we have been reporting on this. There is some concern whether or not Cleveland will be ready for the convention. Police got a little taste last night, obviously, with the crowds in the streets, but of course they were celebrating. They were not protesting or rioting, which we are expected to see a lot of in force in July at the convention. Cleveland police say, along with the help of federal agencies, they will be beefing up their security tremendously for the convention. And of course, Wednesday's parade for the Cavaliers will attract tens of thousands of people downtown, and that will also be a security test for police there in Cleveland. So the heat is on for the next month or so in Cleveland, Bill. And I think you're from nearby Cincinnati, so you might be celebrating this morning.
Little Buckeye love. Thank you, Matt. Matt Finn there in Chicago with us today. That'll be quite a sight on Wednesday.
That will be quite a sight on
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Out there. Oh my.
How do you make a grown man cry? Make him wait forever for a championship, right, LeBron James?
You remember now, he was in Miami, won a few
Yes.
titles down there, and he's like, I'm going to win it for my hometown. I'm going to go back to Cleveland and do it. and no one knew of the transaction that he was going home. And he released it at the Nike website, Nike.com, and no one, they kept it such a fantastic secret, and now it's actually happened.
There was a lot of negative emotion when he left and went to Florida. There was a lot of anger in Cleveland, and so then he came back and he was able to finish what he started at home, and it's just an amazing moment for Cleveland, to be sure. And you know, there are a couple other areas that have had a long time since they've had a championship, I learned this morning. So now Milwaukee moves to the top of the list.
Milwaukee, yes.
And guess what's second?
Number
one
two.
of our favorite places, Cincinnati, Ohio. So you're ready, Bill.
Listen, sister,
you are ready. It's
thank
going to be
you.
yours. Here comes a championship.
I hope you're right.
Maybe football season, right? All right, back to the serious stuff here as we have breaking developments in the fight against ISIS. Military facilities and even individual service members are on high alert this morning after a new threat from the Islamic State. We will tell you more about that.
Also, Martha, scrubbing out the words of Omar Mateen and the transcripts of his calls with police during the attack. Attorney General Loretta Lynch saying the FBI will remove references to radical Islam. Why would that be? Florida Governor Rick Scott will join us live to answer that after this break.
Well, what we're not going to do is further proclaim this individual's pledges of allegiance to terrorist groups and further his propaganda.
This is your daughter, and she just got this. Oh boy. But you've got Hum, so you can set this. And if she drives like this, you can tell her to drive more like this. Because you'll get this. You can even set boundaries for her. So if she should be here, but instead goes here, here, or here, you'll know. So don't worry, Mom, because you put this in here. Hum by Verizon, the technology designed to make your car smarter, safer, and more connected. Put some smarts in your car.
Did you know stroke is a leading cause of death and disability? Sadly, most people who suffer a stroke have no prior warning signs. As you age, arterial plaque can build up, leading to cardiovascular disease. Even without symptoms, you may be at risk. Fortunately, cardiovascular disease can be addressed if the risks are detected early. A Lifeline screening can help determine your risks. It's easy and painless. Call today to speak with a Lifeline advisor. Our sophisticated ultrasound technology looks inside your arteries for plaque. And you'll get a detailed report to share with your doctor. That's why many doctors recommend Lifeline screening. Our screenings for cardiovascular disease and other health issues are tailored to your risk factors. They normally cost up to $70 each, but through this offer, you can save over 50% with 5 screenings.
One 800-470-1960.
Duncan got his $500,000. $350,000 policy for under $13 a month. Give your family the security it needs at a price you can afford. Since 1985, SelectQuote has saved over 1 million families millions of dollars on life insurance. Call now or go to SelectQuote.com. Discover what over 1 million families know. We shop, you save.
At Northrop Grumman, our microchips are getting so small and fast. They're taking on far bigger roles, completely transforming the world we live in, enabling entirely new kinds of technologies, and helping keep this country safe. All thanks to our full breadth of capabilities. Because to us, a microchip's impact should be anything but micro. That's the value of performance. Northrop Grumman.
When Josh Atkins books at LaQuinta.com, he gets a ready for you alert the second his room is ready. So you know what he gives?
I'll give you everything I've got and then some.
He gives 110%.
I'm confident this 10% can boost your market share. Feel me, Lois?
I'm feeling it.
Ready for you alert only at LQ.com.
Everything your family touches sticks with them. Make sure the germs they bring home don't stick around. Use Clorox disinfecting products, because no one kills germs better than Clorox.
All right, back with this now. A chilling threat coming from ISIS, the terror group reportedly hacking into a database in South Korea and collecting information on 77 U.S. and NATO Air Force facilities around the world. Now calling on its supporters to attack those facilities. ISIS also releasing personal information on individuals in 21 countries. The U.S. military command in South Korea says they are aware of this breach and that they are taking all of the necessary precautions.
It will be primarily a partial transcript of his calls with the hostage negotiators.
You say partial. What's being left out?
Well, what we're not going to do is further proclaim this individual's pledges of allegiance to terrorist groups and further his propaganda.
So we're not going to hear him talk about those things?
We will hear him talk about some of those things, but we're not going to hear him make his assertions of allegiance and that.
So there's Loretta Lynch, the AG, saying the FBI will release partial transcripts of Mateen's telephone conversations with police during the attack in Orlando. The key word there is partial because any reference made about allegiance to radical Islam, or most of it, is said to be edited out. Florida Governor Rick Scott joins me live now in Orlando. And Governor, thank you for your time yet again today, and welcome back here to America's Newsroom. Do you specifically know what will be edited out of that transcript?
Bill, I do not know, but I tell you, I've talked to families that have been down here since the terrorist attack. I've talked to families that lost their loved ones. I've met with families that are in the hospital, their loved ones in the hospital. We're all looking for answers. And why wouldn't you release everything? We all need to know, but especially these families, they need to know exactly what happened. We're trying to understand why this happened. And so it doesn't make any sense to me. You wouldn't just release the entire transcript.
So you clearly disagree with this decision based on that answer, correct?
Bill, absolutely. I mean, Bill, just seems like this is another example of not focusing on the evil here. This is evil. It's ISIS. It's radical Islam. At some point, we lost 49 lives here. We lost Steven Sotloff, a journalist out of Miami in 2014 that was beheaded by ISIS. At some point, we're going to get a president that's going to say, I care about destroying ISIS. I wanted for everybody that was impacted this, I want a focus on how do we get rid of ISIS? How do we stop this? How do we stop radical Islam? This is wrong. It's hurting our country. This was an attack on our gay community, our Hispanic community, but our entire nation.
She says she did not want to re-victimize the victims. Now, what does that mean?
Well, I have no idea what she means, but I can tell you what. I've gone to funerals. I've sat down and cried with the parents. I've gone and visited individuals in the hospitals. They're grieving. Now, they want answers. If it was my family, I'd want answers. You would too. We all would like answers. She should release everything that doesn't impact the investigation. I can understand if it was something that impacted the investigation until this is finished. I get that. But she's not saying that. It doesn't make any sense to me. We've got to get serious about destroying ISIS. Destroy ISIS, stop radical Islam.
What do you think the motivation is here? What's the administration afraid of?
Bill, I have no idea, but it sure appears that they don't want to talk about that ISIS was involved. This is clearly ISIS inspired. It's clearly as a result of evil, radical Islam. We've got to call this for what it is. We've got to defend our country. We've got to stop, we got to stop saying that ISIS is not the problem. They are the problem. I mean, they want to destroy us. There's people that want to kill us. They are killing us. 49 people in my state massacred because of radical Islam, because of the evil of ISIS.
She also said we're trying to get as much information about this investigation out as possible, meaning to get it made public. I don't get that impression. And I don't believe the American people are afraid of the facts. So what would explain such a delay? Because, you're a week into this, and plus, in fact, 9 days later. And there are so many holes that have yet to be filled in. But what would explain the reluctance? Is it because the investigation is still hot and perhaps they don't know? Or what would explain that?
Well, Bill, I think the local FBI is doing a great job. I think Orlando Police Department, Sheriff's Department, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, they're working together. They're following the leads. I think they're doing their job. But all of us, if it was my family, I'd want the information. What the Attorney General is doing by not releasing all this information, it doesn't make any sense. She's not saying it's impacting the investigation. I would get that. To me, this appears to be, I don't want to focus, the president doesn't want to focus on ISIS. That's what we've got to focus on. We've got to focus on destroying ISIS, stopping radical Islam. This is wrong what she's doing.
In the meantime, all of it is sourced information, and none of it's coming from official sources. Sir, thank you for your time. We're looking for answers again today. Governor Rick Scott, the Republican from Florida.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, sir. My best to you again in your city in the state of Florida. Thank you. Martha.
So meanwhile, President Obama's endorsement of Hillary Clinton raising some new questions about her email probe. Attorney General Loretta Lynch backing the FBI, saying that the president's public support will not affect their investigation.
Also some nasty fires out west, crews fighting the flames in triple-digit temperatures.
This is my heart, my soul, everything I've ever cared about. So I'm just gonna do what I need to do.
I went in, got the old lady, got her to get the dogs out, and I went back in, looked out the back door, and it was a wall of flame. Grabbed my last dog and jumped in the truck and took off.
Clear for takeoff.
See ya.
When you're living with diabetes, steady is exciting.
Oh, this is living, baby.
Only Glucerna has Carb Steady to help minimize blood sugar spikes. And try new Glucerna Hunger Smart to help you feel full.
My arthritis pain used to make my favorite things to do painful. But now with odor-free Blue Emu Maximum Arthritis Cream, I can enjoy life's big moments and life's little ones. Blue Emu Maximum Arthritis Cream. Beat the pain and enjoy.
This is the way I look at it. I grew up in northern New Jersey. I grew up in politicians' homes. And I know that to be a politician in New Jersey, somewhere along the line, you got to take an envelope. And when you're running for president, it's pretty tough to take an envelope and people not to fucking raise their hand.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Donald Trump. When he raised his hand, I could not believe it.
Yeah.
Just on what he did in New York in the 80s. If that guy even moves...
What did he do in New York?
In New York in the 80s, when he was building all those things...
Hold on a second. Once the rants start going, don't pull it up.
When in the 80s, when he was doing all that developing, okay, he shut out, like Rogan Construction. Okay, Rogan Construction was started by you. I'm just making a name up.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Rogan Construction was a company started by your grandpa in Newark and his two brothers, and then he hired their sons, and now they have 12 full-time employees, and they've been putzing along since 1948, doing new construction and houses and remodels, but whatever, they're keeping their lights on.
Right.
And all of a sudden, a GC comes in, who's a general contractor on this job, who's somebody like fucking Trump, and he hires people like Rogan Construction and Search Electric and Ugot's fucking plumbing and
Ugot
Suck My Dick Concrete, whatever the fuck the name of the company is.
Somebody make a t-shirt quickly.
And they would stiff him. And all these companies went out of business. All that construction he did in New York and New Jersey in the 80s was very suspect. Number two, before he raised his hand, I hope that he's this intelligent. Let me get that water, my brother. I'm sorry to fuck up your little... I hope that he called a congressman or a governor or somebody in Colorado, and he said, how buried is Sammy the Bull Gravano? Can he get to TMZ? Can he get to a phone? Because all those deals he had going on in the 80s, he was in bed with the mafia. It doesn't take a fucking genius to tell you that. Okay, a dumpster, the one that Johnny Reed fell in when he tried to commit suicide. You know those dumpsters you guys see?
Yeah.
A square dumpster. To get one in Colorado in 1987 was $200 for the day. You know what that same dumpster was in New York in 1987? $2,200. That's how high the construction costs were. Some of it were the mafia tax.
Well, there was a lot of organized crime.
Tons of organized crime. So somewhere along the line, this Trump was in bed with organized crime.
Had to be.
Had to be.
That's
the Trump Plaza, Atlantic City. Just look at the locations.
I never thought of this.
I always thought of this. I always knew this idiot could not raise his fucking hand. And if anybody is smart, go to the Sammy the Bull book. He talks about it in not so many ways.
Really?
So I guarantee the feds have their files. And as soon as this guy moves up a little bit, they're going to go, take a look at this. This is what Sammy the Bull told us. How can we take care of this? A donation to the fucking Abafangul company of fucking blind kids, whatever the fuck it takes. Because this guy was the major contractor in New York in the 80s. All these small businesses, he put their lights out. You know how I know? I'll tell you how I know, for a fact. When I got locked up, one of the conditions of me getting out was I had to get a job. To alleviate the state of Colorado, my attorney came up with this paperwork. Listen, if you let him out, he'll leave. Not next week, not tomorrow.
Task ahead of them, and it's the heat obviously affecting fires all over the Southwest.
Yeah, of course. Well, the heat, now there's several problems. Number one, of course, that lower humidity means some of this fuel can literally go up like newspaper. And then, of course, you have the effect on the firefighters themselves. Of course, it's one thing to lay out at the pool and be at 90 to 100 degrees, but it's another one working up there with 30, 40 pounds of gear on. So that's going to reduce effectiveness. In fact, we had 3 people here treated for heat exhaustion yesterday. Now, they've got to be very vigilant with these conditions. In fact, there was a fire that broke out yesterday in Los Angeles. They had to close the freeway for 2 hours. They tried putting out with hoses. That didn't work. They brought in the helicopters, got it under control. Also down near the border fire, that they've had to evacuate 75 people in an area east of San Diego in the mountains in the deserts there called the Potrero fire. A lot of animals had to be evacuated as well. But as you said, the heat, 112 in Beverly Hills yesterday, 120 in Palm Springs. You have fires in New Mexico and Arizona. The heat is very problematic here in California as well, where we expect temperatures over 100 degrees today.
Unbelievable.
Back to you.
Wow. All right, William, thank you.
One of the biggest stories of the day is this right here. We're awaiting an update from the FBI. The feds will release partial transcripts of the phone calls made by the terrorist killer to police during that attack. So when that happens, we will share that with you. Stand by.
Plus, Donald Trump saying that the country should consider racial profiling in the wake of the Orlando attack. He says that some of these measures would be simply common sense. Is he right about that? We'll debate.
What Donald Trump has said is what the American people know is common sense, that if somebody had been there to stop this faster, fewer people would have died. That's not controversial. That's common sense.
The following memories are brought to you by Prevagen. Your memories make you who you are, and now your ability to recall short-term details could actually improve with age. The breakthrough in Prevagen helps your brain, allowing you to stay as sharp as possible, because you've got a lot of great memories to make. Powered by an ingredient originally discovered in jellyfish, Prevagen is clinically shown to improve short-term memory.
Go to MyPillow.com now. Use the promo code on your screen to get 2 My Pillows for the price of 1. My Pillow comes with an unprecedented 60-day.
You're free to focus on growing.
Your business.
Rounds this issue. Some of it may be
the best night sleep.
So you've got
down on 3 cases.
Pillow has
in college admissions and whether or not millions of undocumented immigrants will be allowed to remain in the country. This year, we could see a higher number of the votes as the court is operating with 8 justices instead of the usual 9 after the death of Justice Antonin Scalia. Now, the session goes another week or 2, but this is the crunch time when they want to get these decisions out before they take their July break. So after 10 a.m. Eastern Time, there may be movement from the High Court. Keep it here. We'll let you know.
I think profiling is something that we're going to have to start thinking about as a country, and other countries do it. And you look at Israel and you look at others, and they do it, and they do it successfully. And, you know, I hate the concept of profiling, but we have to start using common sense, and we have to use, we have to use our heads.
Okay. Donald Trump doubling down on the issue of racial profiling, saying that it's a practice that the feds are going to have to start taking seriously. Trump first endorsed limited profiling of Muslims in the U.S. following the San Bernardino terror attack back in December. Now, in the wake of Orlando, he says it's a preventative tactic that we have to consider. Let's talk about it with Marianne Marsh, former senior advisor to John Kerry. Katie Pavlik is the news editor for townhall.com. Welcome to both of you. Good to have you here this morning. I mean, there's a lot of hysteria that surrounds this issue. Some of it may be well placed, some of it not. And some of these ideas, Katie, are things that we've discussed quite a bit since 9/11, really, in terms of the best way to go after the people who are actually perpetrating these crimes. Your thoughts?
Well, absolutely. And we certainly can start with behavioral profiling and acknowledging the fact that when ISIS says they're using our freedoms against us in order to attack our Western values, that's an issue that we have to grapple with and come to terms with. But Martha, the issue is that if we're not going to use the profiling to our advantage and also to stop terrorist attacks. For example, see something, say something in this case has failed once again. We're really going to go nowhere, and at the next attack look back and go, we again had all of these warning signs that we ignored, and here we are again with another terrorist attack on American soil. We've been here before, we've ignored the warning signs, and it's time to accept them and not cry foul and say it's simply profiling when it's learning from our mistakes and moving forward to protect the country.
Marianne, what do you think?
Look, Katie makes a great point. We have ignored a lot of signs, but racial profiling isn't going to prevent terrorism. In this case, it's not going to reduce it. This is more about politics. And so I think the questions we have to ask here is, how do we fix it? In the wake of 9/11, we changed the way we got on airplanes. We changed the security. We changed the doors on the planes. We did lots of things. What we're not doing here is asking questions like, why does the FBI consistently seem to have these suspects in their sights? They identify them. They investigate them, they interview them, and then they release them. Why does that happen? Why aren't they sharing information with the states? There is a whole host of questions here.
Well, part of the reason that it happens is that the time limitation runs out on the amount of time they're allowed to have somebody, and maybe that's something we need to reconsider.
So
maybe we should
that.
extend the amount of time that people remain on these lists, and we do have to have better communication with local law enforcement, that's for sure. But when you look at all these cases, look at who Omar Mateen cited in his transcript, which we're going to get at least part of out today, and I think most of us wish we would get the whole thing because that would be the honest way to present all of this information. There are similarities between these individuals in terms of age, yes, in terms of religious affiliation, yes, in terms of background and prior arrests, okay? Look at Tamerlan Tsarnaev, look at Omar Mateen. Both of them had been arrested in abuse cases before. There are pieces that you can put together, and maybe calling it racial profiling is not really the way to go about this, but you can put pieces of information together that are evidentiary, Katie, that make sense. And in many ways, as much as people react to what Donald Trump said here, and I think some of that reaction is understandable, the common sense part of it, I think, is something that a lot of people can connect with.
Well, first I want to make the point that the Justice Department isn't simply editing out references to ISIS. This is government censorship, and I think we should all be alarmed about that. That's a separate issue. Martha, another thing that a lot of these cases have in common is the fact that people were scared of being called Islamophobic. You have reports that the FBI indeed maybe dropped their case on Omar Mateen because they were going to be accused of Islamophobia. In San Bernardino, for example, the neighbors didn't call in suspicious behavior because they were afraid of being accused of being anti-Muslim. And finally, let's not forget the Fort Hood shooting when the terrorist there was going around stating terrorist-type propaganda with an Islamic slant, and everyone ignored it because they didn't want to be accused
So,
of
Marianne,
racism.
what is wrong with what Katie just said? What doesn't make sense in what Katie just said?
What doesn't make sense is they had all these people. It's what they did afterwards.
No,
it's not
but you're not addressing. But Marianne, you have to address that the fear of regular citizens who knew these people to say anything, to see something and say something, came from the fact, by their own admission, that they were afraid they were going to be accused of being Islamophobic. This is something we need to get beyond, don't you think?
Martha, in Boston, they did. Okay? So let me use Katie's words against her. You don't use, if ISIS is using our freedoms against us, what you don't do is give them our freedom. That's what made this country great. So compromising our principles, compromising our freedom, compromising our values isn't the answer. The same issue exists in the African American community, where 17-year-olds here were killed and people won't say who did it. So it's an educational issue. You have to encourage people to report people, but giving up our freedoms and compromising everything this country was founded on is not the answer.
See something, say something, say something, see something, say something, until, of course, you say something and you're named a bigot, not just by people in your own community, but by the Obama administration itself.
No, it's what both of you are ignoring is the fact that the FBI, in most of these cases, had these people, had them on the radar screen, had them in, and then let them go and did nothing.
For fear.
Dustin Johnson will win the U.S. Open.
Pretty good Father's Day.
to you. And the federal statute essentially immunizes the community of people that sell guns. And so when you have manufacturers that are immunized from selling a weapon, excuse me, you have this statute which affords them protection. And so the issue was, every time a crime is committed, the gun people who sold guns and manufactured guns said this would be ruinous liability. If we're going to be held accountable every time there's a crime that occurs, we're not going to be able to sell guns. You're going to take down and bankrupt our industry. And based upon that, there was a statute passed that said, okay, you're right, but there are loopholes in that statute, and I think that's what's at play
Okay,
here.
so let's just talk about this federal exemption for gun manufacturers,
Yes.
right? You can sue car manufacturers for whatever you want. Why don't they have a federal exemption?
Well, I guess we'd have to ask that question to Congress. When you have a very powerful gun lobby and you have a very powerful Second Amendment that says people have a right to bear arms, the gun industry says, well, why should we be held accountable? Guns don't kill people, people kill people. And so that's been the argument. And based upon that, Congress has acted.
You could argue the same with cars.
You certainly could.
Cars don't kill people. People.
You know, and that's the point, and that's why I think you're seeing a real pushback. And if you look at this historically, you might remember in 1994, under Clinton, there was this 10-year ban on assault weapons that wouldn't get into the hands of civilians. Unfortunately, Carol, you saw a lapse in that. And because of the lapse in it after 10 years, guess what? 2004, there is no such thing. 2005, you have this statute that says, you know what, if people get their hands on weapons, we're going to immunize you because you're not the issue. You know, the gun manufacturer's not the issue. The people killing people are the issue. However, in that statute, it says that if people who you know or might reasonably expect get their hands on weapons and they commit crimes, you may very well be liable. And that's what that's the heart of this very litigation.
Okay, so what are the chances of success?
It may be very good. What I think you're seeing is a major pushback, and people are saying, look, enough is enough. When you manufacture a gun, and there are two sides to the argument clearly, but I think what the families are saying is this. You have an AR-15. It discharges 30 rounds in 10 seconds. You have people in the military who use that weapon. They're trained for 100 hours before they get to use it, and they undergo a mental health evaluation. But you're going to market this weapon to civilians without that mental health evaluation and without any such training. Really, and that's the argument that the families are making, it has no use in practical life other than to kill people. And of course the manufacturers say, again, guns don't kill people, people do. We're simply manufacturing a product that's out there for the public. If they use it in an inappropriate way, that's on them. It's certainly not on us.
Okay, we'll see what happens. Joey Jackson, thanks so much.
Pleasure.
Still to come in the newsroom. First, he said to ban Muslims. Now Donald Trump says the U.S. should look into profiling Muslims. But will that make us safer?
$1 million on lawyers and experts to
answer the same question that Wallace asked. Is this a conflict of interest
When
or
she
not?
says that we have career agents and career lawyers investigating her, she's correct. They have the best of two teams investigating her. That's not the... Says yes, the evidence to indict and the evidence to convict that is publicly known is overwhelming. Does she have a...
Call Liberty Mutual for...
will become a defendant in a criminal case. If she says yes, the evidence to indict and the evidence to convict that is publicly known is overwhelming. Does she have a conflict? It's hard to believe she hasn't addressed this with the president. They both have.
Really? Hard to believe?
She told Chris Wallace that she and the president have not discussed this. She gets daily reports on the progress of these two investigations against Mrs. Clinton, public corruption and espionage. It's almost inconceivable that she has not kept the White House abreast of what her FBI agents are finding.
Wallace asked her that question, and this is how she answered that specifically.
We've never discussed the Clinton case. I've never spoken about it with the president or really with anyone at the White House. That's not the kind of relationship that I have with people there, and it would be inappropriate to do so.
Certainly would be inappropriate, but you're suggesting otherwise.
I do not know what her relationship is with the White House, but I would think that the president would want to know the gravity of evidence that the FBI is accumulating, because he himself will have a conflict. He is the chief law enforcement officer of the land. He knows Mrs. Clinton is in the crosshairs of the FBI for two very serious criminal investigations. He wants Mrs. Clinton to succeed him, and he, Bill, emailed 4 of the top secret emails to Mrs. Clinton at her Clinton
You're suggesting
server.
she's not telling the truth.
I'm suggesting that she doesn't want to confront the obvious, which is they must have talked about it and they have to decide sooner or later which way they're going to go. The investigation on the emails is over, with the exception of the interview of Mrs. Clinton herself. It will take place before the Democrats meet in Philly.
For the third week of July. Then if your suggestion then is that he's asked her whether or not he should get behind her candidacy.
She may very well have said,
right?
I don't want to talk about this because I've got to give you a professional recommendation. She may have said that, which is the implication she's given Chris Wallace. But to suggest there's no communication going on is a head scratcher.
Wow. Judge, thank you. More on this to come.
Yes.
Martha, what's next?
Lots going on as we look at the heat in the Southwest as well. Air conditioners full blast in Arizona today. A heat wave hitting the Southwest, temperatures topping 100 degrees and still rising.
Also, Senator Elizabeth Warren, a friend of Hillary Clinton, holding nothing back when it comes to Mr. Donald Trump. Did you hear this?
Every day it becomes clearer that he is a thin-skinned, racist bully. And every day it becomes clearer he will never be president of the United States.
Scientifically proven to improve joint comfort. Shown on a cellular level to block enzymes that break down cartilage. Cosamin, formulated with integrity. and attention to detail for joint.
Protect your whole family and their devices. Download your free McAfee Security. Software today at optimum.com.
Tonight, we ride with Brevecto.
Ask your vet about 12-week protection with Brevecto.
Working a number of stories here and some breaking news, but we want to get this to you right now. The heat wave that is gripping the Southwest. Temperatures in Phoenix, 118 degrees on the first day of summer there. It is one of the highest ever recorded. Dozens of people have been hospitalized. Multiple heat advisories remain in effect. Meteorologist Maria Molina is live in the Fox Weather Center with more. So, Maria, how bad is this expected to get today?
Oh, Martha, temperatures are just going to keep climbing out there across that region. Parts of California, Nevada, Arizona are expecting temperatures in some areas to exceed up to 120 degrees. And the problem is that we have this large high pressure system that's going to be keeping things hot for several days. For instance, in Phoenix, Arizona, take a look at the forecast through Friday. By Friday, 112 degrees for the forecast high temperature. That's well above average even for this part of the country that is so used to dealing with those very hot temperatures. And because of this extreme heat, we have a number of warnings that are in effect out there across parts of Southern California, Nevada, Arizona, and even extending farther north into portions of Utah. So this entire region could be looking at temperatures of up to 120 degrees. Locally, some will even see greater temperatures than that. But the heat isn't only localized across the southwestern U.S. Other areas are also going to be dealing with the heat. For today, you can see areas across the plains forecasting temperatures into the 90s, and in St. Louis, 99 degrees for the high temperature today. And by tomorrow, that heat continues to expand out there across portions of the plains, extending even farther north to parts of the northern plains. Martha?
All right, Maria, thank you very much. A lot of red and pink out there.
Confirming this news, Corey Lewandowski from the Trump team is now out. In a statement from Hope Hicks, it reads this: the Donald J. Trump campaign for president, which has set a historic record in the Republican primary, having received almost 14 million votes, has today announced that Corey Lewandowski will no longer be working with the campaign. It continues. The campaign is grateful to Corey for his hard work and dedication, and we wish him the best in the future, end quote. Remember when Lewandowski came on board? He's from the state of New Hampshire. He comes down to Trump Tower. They sit and have one conversation. They do a handshake, and they were a team at that point. That was about a year ago. And now today, they part ways.
I mean, you can't ignore the Paul Manafort element to this, and also the fact that there are some polls that are showing some pulling away of Hillary Clinton in the last 8-9 days or so. A lot of discussion about the fact that perhaps he hasn't handled his post-nomination period well, and that they have squandered some of the opportunity that existed there. Britt Hume's going to speak with us about this major news from the Trump campaign when he joins us just a few minutes away.
Everything your family touches sticks with them. Make sure the germs they bring home don't stick around. Use Clorox disinfecting products, because no one kills germs better than Clorox.
Olay Total Effects, a skin transformation that rivals the leading department store moisturizer. Revives skin to fight 7 signs of aging. With Olay, you age less, so you can be ageless. Olay, ageless.
You're late for work. You grab your 10-gallon jug of coffee and back out of the garage, right into your wife's car, with your wife watching. She forgives you, eventually. Your insurance company, not so much. They say you only have their basic policy. Don't basic policies cover basic accidents? Of course, they say, as long as you pay extra for it.
With a Liberty Mutual base policy, new car replacement comes standard. And for drivers with accident forgiveness, Liberty Mutual won't raise your rates due to your first accident. Learn more by calling 1-888-846-3155. At Liberty Mutual, every policy is personal, with coverage and deductibles customized just for you, which is why we don't offer any off-the-shelf policies. Switch to Liberty Mutual and you could save up to $509. Call Liberty Mutual for a free quote today at 1-888-846-3155. See car insurance in a whole new light. Liberty Mutual Insurance.
When I first started, I wasn't sure I could do it. Losing 50 pounds felt impossible. But just like everything else in life, it started with a single step.
Introducing the all-new Turbo 10. Lose up to 10 pounds in your first month and 5 inches overall. You'll love it. Money back guaranteed.
Nutrisystem was a step in the right direction. I took that first step, and I'm glad I did it. 30 pounds gone.
Order your 28-day plan right now. With Turbo 10, you'll get delicious meals and 1 week of our all-new Turbo Shakes, free, packed with protein and probiotics to help support digestive health and bust belly bloat. Plus 1 week of our NutriCrush shakes to crush hunger free. Call or click now and we'll rush you Turbo 10 today with 14 free shakes. Lose up to 10 pounds in your first month and 5 inches overall. You'll love it. Money back guaranteed.
Call Nutrisystem and get your weight loss started today.
Call 877-270-SIZE right now and get the all-new Turbo 10 with 14 shakes free.
At Northrop Grumman, our microchips are getting so small and fast, they're taking on far bigger roles, completely transforming the world we live in, enabling entirely new kinds of technologies, and helping keep this country safe. All thanks to our full breadth of capabilities. Because to us, a microchip's impact should be anything but micro. That's the value of performance. Northrop Grumman.
Bombshell news from the Trump campaign just moments ago. Corey Lewandowski is no longer with the campaign. He has been clearly the closest confidant for some time to Donald Trump. When he launched the campaign, you see him right there to the left of Mr. Trump. They have been side by side throughout the course of this. So this is big news. There's no other way to look at it. Welcome, everybody. Brand new hour of America's Newsroom now. Good to have you with us. I'm Martha McCallum.
And I'm Bill Hemmer. Good morning as we continue to look at this story. Remember, Lewandowski from New Hampshire gave Mr. Trump one of his big boosts in this campaign. After finishing second in Iowa, he won in New Hampshire, and that started to pave the road for more victories along and across the country.
Fox News senior political analyst Brit Hume joins us now with his reaction to this. Brit, good morning to you. What do you think?
Hi, Martha.
Good morning.
Well, it's a couple of things, Martha. One is that it seems pretty clear from what's happened in the past 3 weeks that the Trump campaign was woefully unprepared for the kind of national effort that the winner has to mount, and mount pretty quickly once the nomination is sealed. There appears to be way insufficient money to compete with what Hillary Clinton and her team is spending on attacking Donald Trump. It appears that in terms of voter mobilization efforts and all of that, that the campaign intends to rely, because it must, completely on the RNC. And Trump himself, of course, has wandered off into all of these cul-de-sacs talking about things that really don't have much to do with the campaign, and making it hard for Republicans who are trying to support him to do so. So I guess someone had to take the fall. Now, I don't know what the interior drama was inside the campaign, what the infighting was, and who won and who lost. But it's not at all surprising that something had to give here. And besides, and what we don't know, Martha, is whether this signifies that Trump himself is about to make a major change in the approach to the campaign. That remains to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, that's clearly one of the big questions. There were reports out there that there were screaming matches between the communications director and Lewandowski. That story, as you say, will be told down the line in fullness, no doubt. However, it raises questions about whether or not the direction of the campaign is of concern to Donald Trump. And Corey Lewandowski, by all accounts, has been the person within that campaign who's been saying, let Trump be Trump. From the very beginning.
Well, perhaps so, but if he didn't want Trump to be Trump, it's not at all clear that Trump wouldn't have gone on being Trump anyway.
Good point.
If you see what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I would also say that Lewandowski, whatever his strengths may have been, and he certainly was loyal to Donald Trump, and Trump had a lot of success with Lewandowski as the campaign manager. But if you look at his background, it does not appear that he had the experience and the skill honed over years of national campaigns to run a national campaign. And it's not an easy thing to do. It has to be a massive undertaking with all sorts of intricacies and teamwork and lots of people and a big, you have to, it's a huge thing. And you got to stand it up in a very short period of time. It's not easily done. So what would appear that Trump needs now is somebody who's a very seasoned pro to try to pull this whole operation together and build it up to the scale it will be needed.
Yeah, his prior experience had been running a Senate re-election campaign in New Hampshire for Republican Bob Smith. Had never had experience at the national level in a campaign, but Donald Trump was the first to point out all along the line, Britt, that this is not your normal campaign and that we do things differently. And they had an enormous success, as you point out, through the primary period. But now you've got some skittishness in the polls for Donald Trump, and you have, as you pointed out yesterday on Fox News Sunday, you get moments to reintroduce yourself to the American public, and during those moments you can add to your numbers. That opportunity, as you pointed out, squandered since he got the nomination.
Yeah, I think, Martha, that he's now in the polling averages, he stands now below where Mitt Romney ever did, which is a bad sign because Mitt Romney lost. I would also say to you, Martha, that I know that Trump has been urged to mount a voter targeting, computerized voter targeting, micro-targeting operation, which was hugely successful for the GOP in 2004, and on an even grander scale, successful for Barack Obama in 2012, which I thought was the greatest voter mobilization effort in history.
Yeah.
And Trump has told people who said to do that, well, he doesn't really need that, he does rallies. Well, maybe he's beginning to realize that going around doing rallies might have been enough to win him the Republican nomination with a large plurality of Republican primary voters, but isn't going to be anywhere near enough to win an election in which Democrats have kind of a built-in electoral college advantage.
Yeah, I mean, when you think back in presidential campaign history to other periods where there has been disarray within the campaign, where a campaign manager has been fired at this stage of the game, are there historical comparisons to be made here that may shed some light?
Well, I can think of Reagan in 1980 fired John Sears, but that was back before around the time of the New Hampshire primary.
Yeah.
That was early in the game, I just think that the Trump won this nomination maybe some weeks ahead of where he was expected to, and he needed to have a national organization already in place and somebody capable of running it, and he didn't, and so here we are. It's going to be very interesting to see whom he chooses to come in and try to build this out, to some extent from scratch, very late in the game. In the meantime, of course, he's getting pounded by the Clinton campaign, which has decided that the best way for them to win is to beat on Trump. And so far, it seems to be working. And remember what happened to Mitt Romney, Martha, back in 2012. He had a long struggle to get the nomination, and he spent all of his pre-convention money. So at this stage of the campaign, where you have this opportunity to build your support, he was tapped out to a great extent and was unable to respond to the attacks on him that had been begun by Republicans. You remember vulture capitalist and all that?
Yep.
Well, the Democrats seized on that, and they went to town with it, and it hurt him, and I'm not sure he ever recovered from that.
Yeah, and the Clinton campaign spending $45 million or something in swing state ads that are coming out against Donald Trump, and he may have realized that he is up against something that he's going to have to contend with. So, like a business manager, he may say, "Look, I'm going to make a change," and we'll see if he can turn it around. Britt, thank you very much.
We've reached out to the Trump team. We hope to speak with them very soon. So stay tuned for more on that. You're a month away from a convention. Yep. Significant headline now. So we'll try and dig for the reasons coming up in a moment. In the meantime, though, the news keeps breaking this morning from Orlando. Here we go. The FBI said to release partial transcripts of the calls between the Orlando terrorist Omar Mateen and police during the massacre that killed 49. Attorney General Loretta Lynch confirming that only partial transcripts will go out, editing references to Islamic radicalism.
You know, as we have said earlier, he talked about his pledges of allegiance to a terrorist group. He talked about his motivations for why he was claiming at that time he was committing this horrific act. He talked about American policy in some ways. The reason why we're going to limit these transcripts is to avoid re-victimizing those who went through this horror.
Well, Peter Ducey's live in Orlando to explain all this. And how far do these transcripts go in explaining in explaining Omar Mateen's motive, Peter?
Potentially further than anything we've seen to date since last Sunday, Bill. We know that on these transcripts, the terrorist, Mateen, does talk to hostage negotiators about his feelings toward American policy. We know he does not talk about problems with gay people from his position inside the gay nightclub. And we will not see what he said about pledging allegiance to the Islamic State because the Justice Department says they don't want victims to get upset and they don't want ISIS to have any new material for their propaganda.
We're not going to hear him make his assertions of allegiance and that. This will not be audio. This will be a printed transcript, but it will begin to capture the back and forth between him and the negotiators. We're trying to get as much information about this investigation out as possible.
And we should get a lot of new details with these transcripts about exactly what Mateen said or threatened that kept the SWAT team from going into Pulse for 3 hours on Sunday morning, Bill.
Well, much more to come on this. Thank you, Peter Ducey. The headline from there, more when we get it. Live in Orlando. Thank you, Peter.
Busy morning. We're waiting for U.S. Supreme Court Justice to hand down some rulings this morning. They are about to take their break for the summer, so several big cases that we're keeping an eye on involve affirmative action, abortion. That's the Texas case about the clinics and whether or not they could remain open. The court is evenly divided since the death of Justice Antonin Scalia, so it's possible that we could see some ties here. We heard a lot about the possibility of that when he passed, so will there be compromise rulings? We're going to get you that when we boil it all down as soon as they come forward.
In the meantime, this is rocking the political world in the campaign of 2016. Corey Lewandowski, one of the earliest to sign up for the Trump team, is now out. The campaign putting out a statement about 20 minutes ago saying that Corey Lewandowski is leaving the Trump campaign. How does that all work into Trump's campaign and what their strategy is and what happens internally? All this we're going to work through in a moment here when we talk with the Trump team. So stay tuned. More on that coming up. It is news that I don't think anyone anticipated, but this is what it is, and we'll try and dig for answers and explanations in a moment here. In the meantime, 10 minutes past. More on that next.
Fight heartburn fast with Tums Chewy Delights. The mouth-watering soft chew that goes to work in seconds to conquer heartburn fast. Chewy Delights, only from Tums.
One day the house was Mom's. The next day, it was mine. After Mom passed, there was so much to deal with. Homevestors made it real easy. I got cash for the house and didn't lift a finger.
Call us today at 800-44-BUYER.
This is Lulu, our newest dog.
Mom didn't want another dog. She says it's too much work.
Lulu's hair just floats. Oh, help me!
Mom, check this out.
Wow. Silver sweeper and dusters. This is what I'm talking about. Look at that. Sticks to this better than it sticks to Lulu. That's your hair, Lulu.
Mom, can we have another dog?
Trap and lock up to 4 times more dirt, dust, and hair than the store brand. Stop cleaning, start Swiffering.
Okay, let's talk about your annuities. You worked hard, you saved, and for good reasons you bought an annuity for some steady income, giving you a little money every month, right? But life happens. Waiting doesn't work anymore. There's house repair, medical expenses, your bucket list, and suddenly a little money every month just isn't working for you. So what do? A loan? Run up your credit cards? A reverse mortgage? No! Why pay to use someone else's money when your annuity money is just sitting there? Call this number now or visit the website and Annuity Action Network will get you started. It's easy, there's no stress, and you could get your cash in as little as 2 days. Hey, using your annuity money is a no-brainer, and you could cash in just a part of it so you can keep getting payments. If you need money now, your annuity money is waiting. Call Annuity Action Network now.
Call 1-800-986-5904 or visit aancash.com. That's 1-800-986-5904.
Are you missing out on life because you're putting off neck or back surgery? Call Laser Spine Institute, the leader in minimally invasive spine surgery, to learn how a less than 1-inch incision can have you up and walking within a few hours of surgery, free from chronic back pain, and with no hospital stay and no lengthy recovery. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with spinal stenosis, bulging or herniated disc, sciatica, or other chronic conditions, call today for your no-cost MRI review.
I was suffering with pain really bad to the point where I couldn't even stand up straight. Now, I can do everything that I did prior to my back injury. I can play with my kids. I can go bike riding, soccer, football, fishing. Changes your whole life.
If you've been told you might need neck or back surgery, call 1-844-429-BACK now for your no-cost MRI review.
Laser Spine Institute, a less than 1-inch incision, a lifetime of standing tall.
The new Range Rover Evoque. Land Rover, above and beyond.
Shake up at the Trump campaign as the campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, has now parted ways with the campaign. We're joined now by senior advisor, Barry Bennett. Barry, good morning. Good to have you here this morning. Thanks.
Hey, Martha.
So what do you think? Why did this happen?
Well, I mean, Mr. Trump obviously made a decision this morning. I've not yet talked to him about it, but or anyone at the campaign for that matter. But, you know, I think that they wanted to go a different direction. And, you know, it's his campaign. He's entitled to do that. Corey is a good friend of mine, and I hate to see this happen.
So why do you think it happened?
Well, I mean, presidential campaigns grow like this all the time. Seldom does the same person stay in charge the whole campaign. But, you know, the general election is much different than a primary, and obviously Mr. Trump wanted to make a change.
Yeah, I mean, but it is, we were just talking to Britt Hume about sort of the history of these things, and he talked about the Reagan shakeup in 1980, but that campaign manager was replaced before New Hampshire. We're now 3 weeks from the Republican convention, so who do you believe will take over the campaign? Will it be Paul Manafort?
Yeah, I think Paul is totally in charge.
Paul is totally in charge. In terms of what has happened, because you've heard, you know, all across the spectrum, people talking about perhaps opportunities that have been squandered since Donald Trump sewed up the nomination, and that there's been no pivot, that the campaign has not pivoted, as you point out, to the general election. What kind of changes do you think, if Paul Manafort is the person in charge now, can you confirm that? Is he the person in charge now?
Well, he's the campaign chairman, so yeah, he's the person in charge.
Okay. What kind of changes can we expect to see?
Well, I don't know that we'll see dramatic changes, but I think that, you know, everybody wants the campaign to be about pain. People who can't find jobs, people whose wages haven't risen, people whose kids go to schools that don't teach, you know, the heroin problem. There's a lot of pain out there in America, and Donald Trump can be a champion for people who are in pain, and that's what we'd like to see him do.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, are you frustrated with the subject? It sounds like you're frustrated with the subjects that Donald Trump has been focusing on then.
Well, I'm not frustrated with Donald Trump. I just think that I want to use the skill set that he has to become a champion of people. And he, you know, when he gets going on that vein, he'll be unstoppable.
So characterize for us, if you can, what the mood has been within the campaign, because the poll numbers are looking weak. He's now below where Mitt Romney was at this point, and we know what happened to Mitt Romney.
Oh, I think that, the margin and the RCP average has gone down a couple of points, but that's because Hillary Clinton got the nomination and the Democrats are coming home to her. That's kind of natural. That should be expected. You can't really measure campaigns by the week. I mean, it's like measuring sunshine by the ounce. It really is, it's irrelevant.
All right. So will we see the long-awaited pivot that has been much discussed, where Donald Trump moves off of some of the stuff that he's been talking about and starts talking about things that when everybody looks at the last few weeks, they feel like what a missed opportunity that he had, even with regards to Florida, to come out right after Florida and say, gee, I had it right. Everybody's giving me credit for having it right. All of that kind of talk that focuses everybody on other things other than the kind of substantive matters that you talked about. Should people who support Donald Trump have any confidence that that pivot is now coming, given this news?
Well, I hesitate to call it a pivot because that sounds like it's a big move. But I think the campaign has always been about, the Mexican heroin problem and schools that don't work and government that's wasteful and people who can't find jobs and no one's getting a raise. I mean, that's the kind of things this campaign has been about for over a year. We need to talk about that more, for sure.
All right, we will see. Barry, thank you very much for jumping on with us this morning to cover this breaking news, and we will look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks, Barry.
You've been watching Twitter, looking for a comment from Donald Trump. Nothing yet. Want to bring in Howie Kurtz now, Fox News media analyst and host of Media Buzz. Howie, how you doing? And
doing great, Bill.
I don't think anyone predicted this. What do you think's afoot? Growing pains or more than that?
This is Donald Trump's highest profile firing since The Apprentice, but not that unusual in the hothouse of a presidential campaign. Look, Corey Lewandowski was the ultimate loyalist, straight shooter, kind of got him toward the nomination, but not a lot of experience in managing a big, complicated presidential campaign. Bill, there's two issues here, message and mechanics. On message, it's all Trump. I talked to him on Friday. He doesn't think he's made any mistakes in recent weeks. He didn't regret his tone on Orlando. He's driving that train. On mechanics, the Trump campaign is still kind of a mom and pop shop going up against, Hillary Clinton's 800 people. Donald Trump is proud of that, but he needs to have a bigger, more aggressive, more professional operation, and I guess he's decided to have somebody else at the helm.
Wow, did he address that with you? Did he give you a suggestion that he was going to expand the operation or move it into another phase?
The only thing he said, because he wasn't giving it away, was that there are some things that are not 100% as I would like with our young campaign. In Trump speak, that's like, okay, we got a problem and I got to do something about it. Not saying I saw this coming, although there was a hint yesterday. Corey Lewandowski was announced as a scheduled guest with Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday. By the time the show made air, Lewandowski had been pulled and Senator Jeff Sessions was the surrogate speaking on Trump's behalf. So obviously this must have been in the candidate's mind for at least a few days.
I didn't realize that. That happened, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'm just going to say, you have the major parts of the Republican Party moving away from Donald Trump, either criticizing him or distancing themselves. And I think while Trump doesn't need the entire establishment behind him, he did need to make some kind of pivot. And I think this is probably the first step, more to come.
You hit the line of the morning. I mean, his most high-profile firing since The Apprentice. Onward we go. Thank you, Howie. Good to see you. Howard Kurtz there in Washington, D.C. Martha.
So to the other big story now, investigators are about to release the transcripts of the conversations between police and the shooter during the Orlando terror attack. But they say one part of that will be redacted, and that is the shooter's pledge to ISIS. Why would they do that? Our panel will debate that decision. Plus this.
Final seconds. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Generations have passed since you've been able to say that. They are partying in Cleveland, and for very good reason. It's celebrating its first major sports championship in more than 50 years.
A lot of happiness.
Thanks for the
a ride around Norfolk, and I just wanted to say, Geico is proud to have served the military for over 75 years.
Roger that. Captain's waiting to give you a tour of the Wisconsin now.
Could have parked a little bit closer. It's going to be dark by the time I get there.
Geico, proudly serving the military for over 75 years.
We needed to sell our home, and there was a lot of money on the line. We needed an agent who knew what they were doing. Luckily, we found HomeLight. HomeLight showed us the best agents in our neighborhood based on their actual track record. Who sells quickly? Who sells for top dollar? In the end, we went with Ben. Ben sold our house in just 2 weeks for $55,000 over asking. There's no question. When it's time to sell, the place to go is HomeLight. Join the thousands of people who have sold their home by going to HomeLight.com.
Take the roar out of snore. Yet another innovation only at a Sleep Number store.
One is the most capable pickup on the road today. The other, the most fuel-efficient full-size pickup ever. And together, they outlast them all. Guts, glory, Ram.
Get 0% APR for 60 months or $8,250 in total values on the purchase of 2016 Ram 1500 Bighorn Crew Cab models in stock the longest.
Donald Trump back on The Factor. How he plans to take on terror and win the White House. Bill has the powerful interview you can't miss tonight on The O'Reilly Factor.
They brought this on themselves. Now it's war and I want them dead.
The fleas and ticks?
Their whole gang.
We can do that. Only Bravecto kills fleas and ticks for up to 12 weeks with one tasty chew. Starts killing fleas in 2 hours and kills nearly 100% in under 12. And it's FDA approved.
Bravecto is for dogs 6 months of age or older.
Don't worry, princess. We'll settle the score. Tonight, we ride with Bravecto.
Ask your vet about 12-week protection with Bravecto.
Thanks for testing our new car service today.
Of course.
Our service is a little bit different.
Okay.
We charge by the amount of gas consumed. Since we traveled 5.1 miles and this car offers an EPA estimated 37 miles per gallon highway, your total is 31 cents.
What?
22 cents.
I can pay you cash.
The all-new 2016 Chevy Malibu LT.
Current qualified competitive lessees can get this all-new 2016 Chevy Malibu LT for around $199 a month.
British entrepreneur Sir Richard Branson getting involved now in the so-called Brexit referendum, which would decide if the UK should stay in the European Union. He's launching a nationwide campaign in newspapers, online, and across social media to keep his country in the Union, although the other forces are quite strong now. He says leaving would be devastating for the UK.
There's a few occasions in your life where you can see something going horribly wrong, and this is one of those occasions where, if the wrong decision is made, it will do irreparable damage both to Great Britain and to Europe.
A lot of people in Great Britain say that they are tired of people flooding into their country, and they feel that if they exit the EU, that situation would improve. The referendum comes this Thursday.
We've got something going on in downtown Detroit. Just want to show you this this picture here from WJBK. This is our understanding at the Coleman Young Municipal Center in downtown Detroit has been evacuated to what's described as a police situation. But beyond that, there's not a lot of information. Police say they received a report of a person with a weapon inside the building. There was a tower camera near the building, which might be what we're watching. I do not believe that's a helicopter shot. That shows people gathered outside in the street below. Detroit police, according to the local TV station, say they believe the man with the weapon is inside the Coleman Center. There's also a report here on the Detroit Free Press website. Employees and visitors are being evacuated because of a possible gunman inside. Numerous police cars, officers surrounding that area. SWAT team's been called in. Fox Detroit reports authorities say they're looking for a white man in his early to mid-50s wearing a dark-colored suit. On a day like today, that could be anybody. Dozens of people waiting across the street from City Hall, and they're looking for answers, and so are we, and we're not quite sure what to make of this, but we wanted to share this story with you and hope that nothing comes of it, certainly. Back to Detroit in a moment here on America's Newsroom.
We are also about to have the released transcript of the conversations between the police and Omar Mateen that we believe will shed some light, more light on his motive. However, we've already been told by Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General, that if there's anything in there about him pledging his allegiance to ISIS, we will not be able to reveal that information.
Also today on the Hill, Martha, 4 gun control bills set to hit the Senate floor as Democrats are accused of politicizing the recent terror attacks. Can any of the 4 move forward or not? Will lawmakers vote for tighter gun laws or not?
They don't want to face the embarrassment of their failure in this terrorist area, and they want to cover their butts and not talk about it. You can't save the country with politics.
Washington's out of control, the debt's out of control. Nothing in that story is going to change, so you have to.
The U.S. debt is increasing an average of nearly $2.4 billion every day.
This is an unsustainable practice. It's going to end, but when it does, it's going to end very rapidly and very disruptively.
Call 1-800-885-6000 for your free preview chapter of Chris Martinson's new book, Prosper.
We're about to enter the greatest financial reset in history. So now is the time for people to invest in hard assets, to get their plan together, and to really understand the context behind what's about to happen.
Call Lear Capital to get this free report, The Screaming Fundamentals for Owning Gold. Find out how hard assets like gold and silver can help protect your hard-earned dollars when the debt bomb bursts.
It can't go on forever, and when it bursts, it's going to be the most destructive bubble in all of human history.
This offer ends soon. Call 1-800-885-6000, 1-800-885-6000.
Atlantis. Why do we vacation? That's why. Our summer mega sale has been extended. Receive 50% off dining plans, including breakfast and dinner daily. Plus, kids 6 and under eat free with the purchase of an adult dining plan. And go behind the scenes with an all-new Cartoon Network experience. Hurry, offer ends June 30th. Atlantis. Always amazing.
Hiring in general kind of sucks. It's really tough.
I was spending half my day reading resumes and interviewing people.
To hire great people fast, go to ZipRecruiter.com and post to over 100 of the web's leading job boards with one click. Then simply select the best candidates from one easy-to-review list.
Within a day, I get probably a dozen replies.
I can spend less time hiring and more time with my customers.
Over 800,000 businesses have already used ZipRecruiter. Try it for free today at ZipRecruiter.com/offer6.
You pay your car insurance premium like clockwork. Month after month, year after year. Then one night you hydroplane into a ditch. Yeah. Surprise, your insurance company tells you to pay up again. Why pay for insurance if you have to?
They're not scrubbing it. They're not saying that this isn't a radicalization of Islam. They're saying we're angry that someone's using that in the name of killing, so on and so forth. They're angry that they're targeting, but they all
today.
Cole, this is Donald Trump's highest profile firing since The Apprentice, but not that unusual in the hothouse of a presidential campaign. Look, Corey Lewandowski was the ultimate loyalist, straight shooter, kind of got him toward the nomination, but not a lot of experience in managing a big, complicated presidential campaign. Bill, there's two issues here, message and mechanics. On message, it's all Trump. I talked to him on Friday. He doesn't think he's made any mistakes in recent weeks. He didn't regret his tone on Orlando. He's driving that train. On mechanics, the Trump campaign is still kind of a mom and pop shop going up against, Hillary Clinton's 800 people. Donald Trump is proud of that, but he needs to have a bigger, more aggressive, more professional operation, and I guess he's decided to have somebody else at the helm.
Wow, did he address that with you? Did he give you a suggestion that he was going to expand the operation or move it into another phase?
The only thing he said, because he wasn't giving it away, was that there are some things that are not 100% as I would like with our young campaign. In Trump speak, that's like, okay, we got a problem and I got to do something about it. I did not saying I saw this coming, although there was a hint yesterday. Corey Lewandowski was announced as a scheduled guest with Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday. By the time the show made air, Lewandowski had been pulled and Senator Jeff Sessions was the surrogate speaking on Trump's behalf. So obviously this must have been in the candidate's mind for at least a few days.
I didn't realize that. That happened, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'm just going to say, you have the major parts of the Republican Party moving away from Donald Trump, either criticizing him or distancing themselves. And I think while Trump doesn't need the entire establishment behind him, he did need to make some kind of pivot. And I think this is probably the first step, more to come.
The line of the morning. I mean, his most high-profile firing since The Apprentice. Onward we go. Thank you, Howie. Good to see you. Howard Kurtz there in Washington, D.C. Martha.
So to the other big story now, investigators are about to release the transcripts of the conversations between police and the shooter during the Orlando terror attack. But they say one part of that will be redacted, and that is the shooter's pledge to ISIS. Why would they do that? Our panel will debate that decision, plus this.
Final seconds, it's over, it's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Generations have passed since you've been able to say that. They are partying in Cleveland, and for very good reason. It's celebrating its first major sports championship in more than 50 years.
They don't want to.
Already used.
That refuses to act.
Mark, I appreciate you coming back today, okay? And our best to Gabby, Mark Kelly there with us out of Arizona. We'll see which way they go today, but we got some more breaking news, and we're going to get to that now. Thank you, Mark. We'll talk again real soon. Thank you.
So as we wait for the report to come from the FBI about the Orlando terror attack, that's going to happen at the top of the hour, the feds are set to release partial transcripts of the gunman's call to police. And while we wait for those, we're getting an exclusive look at a hotbed for terror recruitment that has been existing and thriving, really, in the United States. Harris Faulkner went to there, and she got an inside look in Minnesota, where 1 in 4 Americans who join ISIS are recruited. She joins us now. Harris, talk to us a little bit about what's going on in this pocket in Minnesota that has a density of this issue like no place else in the country.
Yeah, more East Africans and Somali former citizens, now American citizens, outside of Mogadishu, the largest population outside their homeland in Minnesota. So I want to start there. The headline with all of this, though, Martha, from what we found out in this area that has been very insular. And it's important that we get in there and form relationships with the media and with the FBI. And the FBI is working on that through the U.S. Attorney General's office there in Minnesota. But the headline in all of this is they call this radicalization of Islam. Radical Islam. I did a ride-along with one of the police officers, one of the 7 Muslim community police officers that Minneapolis PD has hired. They say it's important. Got to speak the language, got to know the culture, get in there on the ground. They're not calling 911 when these young men disappear from these neighborhoods, and they want to go to join ISIS and Al-Shabaab and other groups, but mainly the Islamic State terror group, because they're being recruited online. You know, there's that open door, if you will, online. But the radicalization, the headline here, is happening among their own mosques. They know certain mosques that kids shouldn't be going to. That is unbelievable. You talk about religious freedom in this country. Well, can it extend to the point where we know something is a problem? How do we deal with that as a culture, as a society?
I mean, there's so many concerned about being called Islamophobic. We talked about this in a prior segment, that it has locked down some of the just basic common sense about making people aware of someone who is potentially dangerous. And I know you spoke to some of the young men who are in that community. What did they say about it?
Well, and this is important to have the conversations, and for them to see us with our cameras in there wanting to get their story. I was surprised by what they said. They're furious that the religion is used this way. And they say it like that. They're not scrubbing it. They're not saying that this isn't a radicalization of Islam. They're saying we're angry that someone's using that in the name of killing, so on and so forth. They're angry that they're targeting, but they also say among them, they have choices. Get an education. Be somebody. So, and I think we have a little bit of us talking. Can we watch?
This mother has a kid who's missing, and she called me, so luckily we're trying to find and see what's going on.
So in the past, when young boys have gone missing, some of them have been radicalized.
For us, one is too many, and that's what we're trying to stop. And I think we've done some good stuff, trying to work with the U.S. Office, U.S. Attorney's Office here in the community, all of us. Because what's at stake is the security and the safety of our country.
I want to talk to you about how unprecedented that access was for our cameras. When we first walked in there, people were turning. If we had not had Jabril there to smooth things over, it would have been a completely different story. There's a mosque above, I mean, it's a sea of shops. And it's like an Islamic souk, a market that you would find in Saudi Arabia. They've recreated a piece of home. It's their commerce hub. It's them trying to gain financial independence in our country. Impressive. On the 3rd floor is a mosque. They drew the line. They would let our male cameraman up, but not the female producer and myself. So, I mean, we're in their world. They let us into their world. If we can do it, you know, he talked about working with the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI. Authorities can do it too. We have to call this and deal with this for what it is, and they're willing to work.
But how shocking is it that it's the insularity of it is so intense?
It's here.
That you're not allowed to go in at all. It is shocking, but you guys shed some light in an area that we haven't seen it before, and we have to keep talking about what's going on there because it's very important. Great reporting.
Thank you.
Harris, thank you very much for being here with us. Good to see you.
We are waiting these transcripts from the FBI. We already know that we will not see or hear the entire story. The Attorney General saying that calls from Omar Mateen will be edited, which will take out many of the references to Islamic radicalism. Now ask yourself a question. Why would the government even consider doing that? Next.
People will be releasing a partial transcript of the calls. We're not going to be, for example, broadcasting his pledges of allegiance. We're trying not to re-victimize those who went through that horror.
Hi, I'm William Devane. And for centuries, silver has been one of the most sought-after precious metals, not just for jewelry, but as a currency, making silver a smart and easy way to start protecting your money, which is why I buy silver from Roslyn Capital every chance I get. Give them a call. They'll help you get started. Whether you're looking for beautiful premium coins like this peace dollar, or a Morgan, Walking Liberty, or bags of silver, Roslyn has them all. And with Roslyn, what you order is what you get. No gimmicks, no nonsense, no hassle. And Roslyn still has the fastest shipping around. So buy silver and gold from Roslyn Capital. What's in your safe?
Call now and get a free gold kit, a free silver kit, and a free IRA transfer kit. Call 800-329-9300. 800-329-9300. 800-329-9300.
thought my bladder leakage meant my social life was over. It scared me and caused a lot of disappointment in how I feel about myself. Wearing Depend underwear has helped me feel more connected to the people around me. I know that I'm protected. I'm not thinking about bladder leakage. And I'm meeting people. I feel really grateful just to be absolutely free.
Unlike the bargain brand, new Depend Fit Flex underwear is now more flexible to move with you. Reconnect with the life you've been missing. Get a free sample at Depend.com.
Curves test you, dare you, and invite you in. Curves help you escape, inspire you, and definitely exhilarate you. And the BMW 3 Series with near perfect weight distribution was designed to carve every single one of them. Right now, lease a BMW 320i sedan for as low as $320 a month.
Can we please stop with the lectures on smoking already? I've heard it all, and I want to stop. But cold turkey doesn't sound that hot, unless it's between 2 slices of bread. Can't we take this one cigarette at a time? Because one less cigarette feels pretty big to me. That's how Zonic helps me quit.
With Zonic Nicotine Gum, every cigarette you don't smoke is a victory. 3 great flavors, $4.99 or less wherever cigarettes are sold. Zonic, every victory counts.
David, you have one of the worst cavities I have ever seen. Okay, have a good day.
Aren't you gonna fix it?
Well, I'm not a dentist, I'm a dental monitor. I just tell you when you have a bad cavity.
That's bad. Lunch?
Oh, yes.
Where are you going?
Why monitor a problem if you don't fix it? That's why free credit monitoring isn't enough to protect you from identity theft. At LifeLock, we not only alert you to identity threats, if you have a problem, we'll spend up to $1 million on lawyers and experts who work to fix it. LifeLock. Join starting at $9.99 a month.
So we had half an eye on Detroit about 20 minutes ago, and it appears that everything is A-OK. Police say no active shooter at City Hall. There was some sort of security breach where someone got past the scanner with a handgun in a bag. Regardless, it is done. It is over, if it was anything at all in the first place. Live from Detroit. That's your update.
So we're just minutes away now. The FBI is set to release the transcripts of the phone calls that transpired between the Orlando shooter and the police. Very important to know what was said on both sides of that conversation in order to understand what his motives were. He dialed 911 as he gunned down 49 people in the Pulse nightclub, pledging allegiance to ISIS. We have not seen the whole story, though, and apparently we will not. Loretta Lynch says they will edit out references to Islamic extremism.
You say partial. What's being left out?
Well, what we're not going to do is further proclaim this individual's pledges of allegiance to terrorist groups and further his propaganda.
So we're not going to hear him talk about those things?
We will hear him talk about some of those things, but we're not going to hear him make his assertions of allegiance.
Why would that be? Ashley Pratt is a Republican strategist. Jessica Ehrlich is a former Democratic congressional candidate. Welcome to you both. Good to have you here this morning. Jessica, let me start with you. What possible reason could there be to edit out anything from this transcript?
Well, I think actually the piece that Harris just did that was very powerful about the radicalization that's going on even in Minnesota really sort of hits the nail on the head here, because the reason that he made all these calls, similar to, I think, the way the FBI handles serial killers when they place calls to news outlets. He called not just 911, but TV producers and everything else. He wanted to get that exposure because it's a tool that can be used going forward to radicalize other young people. And I think, making sure that that's not available going forward is very important.
What about honesty in terms of the disclosures of what happened here and the potential manipulation of the narrative from the White House? Is there any other reason why they would be avoiding that, Ashley?
I definitely think here they're playing right into the president's playbook, which is cowering to political correctness and not calling this what it is for fear of offending people. But at the same time, we have to realize this threat is very real. ISIS and radical Islamists, they are at war with America and the values that we stand for. The people in Orlando were slaughtered for their way of life and what they believe in and what they value and the freedoms they have in this country. So that right there is exactly why this happened. That was the motive. And we know that whether or not he was directed acted externally. He, the shooter, was inspired by ISIS. He was radicalized. This might have been a lone wolf attack, but we do know that he was sympathetic to it. So for the DOJ to make this decision and to not let the public know the real threat that's out there by not naming the enemy, again, cowering to political correctness, I think is just wrong and a grave mistake for the future of our country.
Yeah, let's play Rick Grinnell from this morning. He is a former advisor to UN ambassadors. Here's what he had to say about this, and I want to get your reaction, Jessica.
Letting us know exactly who this terrorist is saying that they're fighting for is important. It's not just about words. You only redact information when it reveals sources and methods, our intelligence gathering techniques that we don't want out there. That is the only reason.
Isn't it the American people's right to know what he said?
Well, I think we already do know a lot of what he said, and we've had firsthand accounts from the other victims that were there in the attack. So it's not really a question of, motivation. He's dead now. The concern, I think, going forward is how do we prevent this from happening again, and what are the tools that we use in order to combat what's going on in line and how he was radicalized, whether it was through, his...
I think a lot of people would say that, the more light that is shed on this in terms of what motivated him, the better off we are in fighting it in the future, and that it's not going to prevent any further domestic terror attack to eliminate some of the lines from this transcript.
We know he was radicalized.
I'm sorry to jump in, but Jessica and Ashley, thank you. We've got the transcript now, at least part of it, and we want to start going through it. Thank you very much, ladies. Good to see you.
Thank you.
This is what we're getting from the FBI. Right now, they talk about a phone call that came in at 2:02 a.m. local time last Sunday morning in Orlando. The transcript that has been released goes like so. Emergency 911, this is being recorded. In the name of God, the merciful, the beneficial, and something is said in Arabic. He continues, praise be to God and prayers as well as peace be upon the prophet of God. I let you know I'm in Orlando and I did the shootings. The 911 operator, what's your name? My name is I pledge of allegiance to, omitted. Okay, what's your name? I pledge allegiance to, omitted. May God protect him in Arabic and on behalf of, omitted. The 911 operator, all right, where are you? The killer, in Orlando. Where? In Orlando was the next question from the 911 operator. End of call. Remember, there were 3 911 calls that night. He made the first one and hung up. He made the second one, and this was the exchange. There was a third reverse 911 call in which the operator calls back the number that came in. So there were 3 there. Then later they go into the crisis negotiation team, which started, according to this transcript, at 2:48 a.m. And there were 3 phone calls, one 9 minutes in length, one 16 minutes in length, and one 3 minutes in length after that. Catherine Herridge is going through all this information, as we are as well. And Catherine, I want to get to you now live in D.C. You knew this was coming, and your initial reaction based on what we have seen so far.
Well, it's a pretty limited transcript, Bill. It's only about 3 pages in length. But 3 things immediately jump out to me. His pledge of allegiance to the Islamic State is like a consistent drumbeat throughout these phone calls. It's not kind of a one-off or an isolated event. He also describes himself as a soldier of the caliphate. We know witnesses inside the club described how Omar Mateen said, "Stop bombing my country." That was not a reference to Afghanistan. That was a reference to the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. He also threatens in the phone calls that there is a car outside that is laden with explosives and that he also has a suicide vest. That further explains the reluctance, if you will, of the Florida SWAT teams to go in immediately after the suicide attacks in France in November last year. The view was that they could no longer negotiate with these people because they were willing to die, so they would go in immediately, but we did not see this in Florida. Now we have from the transcript a better understanding as to why there was the delay. And then finally, what I would note, which is really a lingering security question here, is why his phone was not blocked. Because with an active phone like that, he would have the ability to do a remote detonation of any devices that were outside that club and to really decimate the first responders. But the bottom line in this transcript is that his pledge of allegiance to the Islamic State is really like a steady drumbeat that is woven throughout these phone calls. He pledges allegiance. He also pledges solidarity to other terrorists. And then he also sort of takes on the mantle of ISIS, saying that he is an Islamic soldier, presumably of the caliphate. So it's a pretty steady beat.
Also, he tells the negotiator, the crisis negotiator, which was not part of the original 911 call, but it came about 40 minutes later, tell America to stop bombing Syria and Iraq, and that is why he is, quote, out here right now. When the negotiator asked him what he had done, he said, you already know what I have done. And then he referred to this vehicle outside that has some bombs, just to let you know, quoting him now, you people are going to get it. I'm going to ignite it if they try to do anything stupid, end quote, and also referred to the bombs that were used in France. His words, used in France. Quote, in the next few days, you're going to see more of this type of action going on, end quote. And then, Catherine, he hung up.
That's why there were 3 phone calls. I have to say I find the format of this transcript somewhat confusing in the sense that we see the sections that are redacted, and then just based on my read, there are paragraphs summarizing these communications with the hostage negotiators. So the question I have is why some portions are word for word verbatim, and then there are redactions, and then others are sort of in some, if you will. So it doesn't seem to be treated consistently throughout that transcript. We may understand more at that FBI briefing as to why it was done this way, Bill.
2 more things. As victims are being rescued, he said he will put 4 vests with bombs on victims within 15 minutes. And then at 5:14 a.m., a little more than 3 hours after it started, it was over with shots being fired inside. Catherine, thank you. Much more to come on this in Washington.
All right, there's celebration, though, in some parts of the country today, and King James is now king of the world, at least in the basketball world, as Cleveland clinches the title, ending a half-century drought.
All I do is win, no matter what. Got money on my mind, I can never get enough. And every time I step up in the building.
Introducing Cologuard.
I'm here for an important reason. Colon cancer screening. If you're age 50 or older and at average risk, Cologuard finds cancer and pre-cancer. And it's a non-invasive test you can use at home. In fact, I'm as easy as get, go, gone. How do you get me? Your doctor orders me, and I'm delivered directly to your doorstep. There's no need for time off or special prep because I use the DNA in your stool to find colon cancer. Then you just go. I mean, collect your sample. Then I'm gone. Just ship me to the lab. Gotta go.
Cologuard is intended for individuals at average risk for colon cancer. Cologuard is not for high-risk individuals, including those with a history of colon cancer or polyps, IBD, certain hereditary cancer syndromes, or a family history of colon cancer. Cologuard, colon cancer screening that's as easy as get, go, gone. Ask your doctor if Cologuard is right for you.
Introducing the all-new Turbo 10 from Nutrisystem. Lose up to 10 pounds your first month, guaranteed.
Lose your first 10 pounds fast with the all-new Turbo 10 from Nutrisystem.
Your 10 can turn into 20, 30, 50, even more. I'm Marie and I lost 50 pounds on Nutrisystem. You'll see results right away. Count, measure, meetings, not with Nutrisystem.
Order your 28-day plan right now and we'll rush you Turbo 10. Get specially designed meals, plus 1 week of NutriCrush shakes to crush hunger free, and 1 week of new Turbo shakes to help bust belly bloat free.
Bye-bye, stubborn belly fat.
Plus FedEx shipping absolutely free. With Turbo 10, you'll lose up to 10 pounds fast. You'll love it. Money back guaranteed. Millions of people have lost weight on Nutrisystem, and you can too.
Your first 10 pounds? Gone.
Call 888-948-THIN and get Turbo 10 with shakes free.
Your brain is an amazing thing, but as you get older, it naturally begins to change, causing a lack of sharpness or even trouble with recall. Thankfully, the breakthrough in Prevagen helps your brain and actually improves memory. The secret is an ingredient originally discovered in jellyfish. In clinical trials, Prevagen has been shown to improve short-term memory. Prevagen, the name to remember.
The new Range Rover Evoque. Land Rover, above and beyond.
Rocks again. Let's end on a good note today, huh? A thrilling ending to a great series between Cleveland and Golden State. The drama started in the final minutes with LeBron James blocking what would have been a go-ahead layup right there. Woo! That was followed by a clutch three-pointer, Kyrie Irving. But that shot hurt all the way back to Shaker Heights. Put the Cavs up for good with 53 seconds to play, and then you have history here.
Rebound tip taken by Spades. Final seconds. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
And with that, the city of Cleveland winning their first major sports championship in more than 50 years, man. The drought's over. Jim Gray, sportscaster, Fox News contributor. They're going nuts in Westlake and Chagrin Falls and North Olmsted and all parts in between, Jim. What does this mean for this town?
Believe land. It means that Cleveland has this championship now. It's no longer just Jim Brown in 1964. They can forget about the fumble and Ernest Biner. They can forget about the drive and John Elway. They can now celebrate. LeBron James is the best player on the planet. He proved it, a triple-double, the unanimous MVP. He didn't win it in the regular season. These two teams were 1 for 17, Bill, in the last few minutes of this game. And for the Golden State Warriors, just the opposite. As you see LeBron James celebrating there, just the opposite. They go now from 73-9 in the regular season to 15-9 in the postseason. They win the record for the most games ever won in a regular season, but it don't mean a thing if you don't win the ring. Steph Curry was not up to his game, and it was just, a sad ending. Draymond Green suspended in Game 5. They're up 3-1. Cavaliers become the first team in the history of the NBA to come back from a 3-1 deficit. They'll live this forever in Cleveland. It was a great moment. You saw LeBron James celebrate, and the tears that came down, tears of joy, and it's a great, great story, and sad, very sad for Golden State, but happy days are in Cleveland.
Great. Hey, well stated, Jim. Thanks. Good to have you on today. Jim Gray out there in L.A. watching things for us. Thank you, Jim. So the drought is Minneapolis 25 years, Cincinnati 26.
It's your time, Bill.
Milwaukee 45. So here we go.
Have a
we
good
got to
day,
run,
everybody.
everybody.
We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Thanks, Bill and Martha. We start with the Fox News alert. We are expecting that FBI news conference on the Orlando terror attack to start any minute now. The agency just releasing those partial transcripts of the conversations between the terrorist gunman and police negotiators as Omar Martin tells a 911 operator, quote, "I'm in Orlando and I did the shootings." But a very controversial issue this morning, the Justice Department deleting parts of that transcript, including references to Matin's radical Muslim beliefs, his pledge to ISIS, and what he claims was his religious justification for that attack. The transcript says, quote, "I pledge of allegiance to," and then in parentheses, the word omitted. Some are asking this morning, why are the American people being denied the facts? Later in this hour, we will ask a former FBI Deputy Assistant Director. He will join us live on the Justice Department's decision to edit that transcript. And it's a major news morning. Another Fox News alert on that major shakeup in the Trump campaign. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Shawn. In today for John Scott.
And I'm Melissa Francis in for Jenna Lee. Donald Trump firing his campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski. This comes after a rough couple of weeks for the Trump campaign. And as a possible revolt on the convention floor may have gotten a boost this weekend when House Speaker Paul Ryan said he is not going to tell delegates what to do, adding that his fellow Republicans on the Hill could feel free to withhold support for the presumptive GOP nominee.
And for more on this, John Roberts is outside Trump Tower with John. A lot is going on upstairs behind the glass windows this morning.
Eric, Melissa, good morning to you. A lot going on in the hallowed halls of Trump Tower behind me here. A lot to unpack this morning. Let's get to it. First of all, Corey Lewandowski, the campaign manager, the tough as nails guy from New Hampshire, who led Trump to the entire primary campaign, now out as his campaign manager. The campaign stressing he was, quote, not fired. They had a parting of the ways. Here's part of a statement that the Trump campaign put out, quote, "Campaign is grateful to Corey for his hard work and dedication, and we wish him the best in the future." Despite what the campaign says, though, it's hard to see this as anything other than a firing. He and Paul Manafort and the team in Washington have been in a power struggle for a long time. It looked a couple of times like Lewandowski was losing that. only to gain the upper hand after Manafort did something that ran afoul of Trump's way of thinking. But now it looks like ultimately Lewandowski has lost that power struggle. Manafort has not yet been announced as the campaign manager, though it's most likely it will probably go in that direction. Trump had stuck with Lewandowski for a long time. There was that incident back in Jupiter, Florida on March the 8th where Lewandowski grabbed the arm of a reporter and looked like he was going to face charges on that. Those charges were eventually cleared, but Trump stuck with him through the entire way. And don't forget, Lewandowski not only was the campaign manager here, but he was leading the vice presidential search. So that duty has to be set over to somebody else. Plus, he is the chair of Trump's campaign in New Hampshire. So a couple of big roles that Lewandowski had. He will likely continue on as the chairman of New Hampshire, but we're not yet sure about all of that. Now, to these delegates that Melissa was mentioning and the revolt that's going on, this looked like it was kind of a pie in the sky a few weeks ago, but now looking like it's real. There was a conference call held yesterday. There was about 1,000 people on that conference call. Of course, not all of them delegates, but we'll see what happens in the convention. Trump could be facing a rough road. We'll see what happens. Eric, Melissa?
All right, John, thanks so much. We're about to go to the news conference in Orlando. Outside the Pulse nightclub, let's listen to the FBI talk about the partial release of those transcripts.
With 911 operators, as well as with crisis negotiators with the Orlando Police Department. As the Attorney General announced yesterday, these are partial transcripts. Redactions have been made to avoid re-victimizing those who were in the Pulse nightclub during the early morning hours of June 12th. We wanted to release the transcripts at this time so that the public would have a better idea of the timeline during the morning hours of June 12th, and also so that you would have a better idea of what the law enforcement officers on the ground were dealing with when they made the decision to enter the nightclub. The brave men and women of the Orlando Police Department, the Orange County Sheriff's Office, the FBI, and others should not be second-guessed. They performed valiantly during those early morning hours. Lives were saved because of their heroic work. I'd like to say that today there will be no questions answered regarding the investigation. It's been 1 week since the shooting. As you all know, this is a very thorough and comprehensive investigation of the largest mass shooting we've had, the most significant terrorist act since 9/11. No stone is being left unturned. I know that you're impatient for more information. It will be forthcoming in due course. But today, again, no questions about the investigation. Today, there will be no questions answered about the investigation. We're focusing only on the timeline of what occurred during the early morning hours of June 12th. Tomorrow, the Attorney General is going to be in Orlando. She's going to be briefed on the ground by me, the others at the U.S. Attorney's Office, by the FBI. She's going to have a chance to speak to the victims, and it's my understanding that unless things change, she will be speaking to the press tomorrow afternoon. You'll have a chance to ask her questions then. But for now, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague at the FBI, Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Ron Hopper, and he can give you more details. Thank you.
Thank you, United States Attorney Bentley. Good morning. My name's Ron Hopper, and I'm the Assistant Special Agent in charge of the FBI here in Orlando, also in charge of the Joint Terrorism Task Force, which is conducting this current investigation. This investigation is 1 week and 1 day old, and it may last months and even years. But I want you to know that we will endeavor to bring justice to the victims who survived, as well as the family of the deceased who were so viciously murdered. As many of us celebrated Father's Day this past weekend, several were reminded of their lost one and the tragic events that happened on June 12th. Before I provide an update in the investigation, I'd like to acknowledge my partners that are here with me today. I'd like to recognize Chief John Mina with the Orlando Police Department, who will provide remarks following my comments. Orange County Sheriff Jerry Demings, Florida Department of Law Enforcement SAC Danny Banks, DEA Assistant Special Agent in Charge Jeff Walsh, ATF Trevor Velnor, Mayor of Orlando Buddy Dyer, Mayor of Orange County Teresa Jacobs, and additional partners including the Florida Highway Patrol, Orange County Fire Department, Orlando Fire Department, and many other partners who assisted us in this difficult investigation. The Joint Terrorism Task Force has released excerpts and portions of the timeline of events that happened inside the club of the Pulse on June 12th. You've been provided with a general timeline of the Orlando Police Department's radio communications, as well as a 50-second conversation between the killer and the Orlando Police dispatcher. While we're not releasing the audio, what I can tell you is that while the killer made these murderous statements, he did so in a chilling, calm, and deliberate manner. Finally, a summary of the communications between the crisis negotiator and the shooter have been provided to you, and the Chief will take your comments and questions after my formal remarks. While we will not be providing the 911 calls made by the victims, we're doing this out of ultimate respect. Yes, the audio is compelling, but to expose that now would be excruciatingly painful to exploit them in this way. This is an active investigation. It remains an active investigation, and while we understand your interest, we appreciate your patience as we find the facts methodically and carefully. As you will see from the transcripts that we provided just a few moments ago, the killer of 49 and the shooter of 53 others identified himself as an Islamic soldier who pledged allegiance to a terrorist organization which was bent on killing Americans. He does not represent the religion of Islam, but a perverted view which, based on what we know today, was inspired by extremist killers. We currently have no evidence that he was directed by a foreign terrorist group, but was radicalized domestically. As you can see from the information we provided just a few moments ago, the killer stated that he had an explosive device, but none was found. I also want to point out the heroic actions of not only the first responders, but the victims who were inside the club that morning. They were under the most inconceivable stress, and they bravely assisted law enforcement in bringing it to a resolution. There's no doubt that their actions saved lives. Our investigation into the motives behind the killer and anyone who may have conspired with him or supported him continues. Please also keep in mind that the investigation of the shooting exchange between police and the killer is ongoing. I would point out that some have mistakenly rushed to judgment regarding the actions of these brave men and women. What they did that evening and those early morning hours was nothing less than extraordinary. To give you an idea of the scope of the investigation to date, I want to provide you with a few facts. The Joint Terrorism Task Force has conducted over 500 interviews as we sit here today. 117 vehicles were released to owners and registrants of family members of the victims who were at the Pulse nightclub, and we have approximately 10 left to return. More than 600 pieces of evidence were obtained and processed from the crime scene. We've received thousands of tips based on our appeal to the public, and we ask that you continue to call us at 1-800-CALL-FBI or visit FBI.gov. In closing, I want to advise that we're nearing the conclusion of our processing of the crime scene here outside the Pulse nightclub, and that we hope to restore the area and the outside perimeter to the community within the early part of this week. I want to point out special and extraordinary devotion to the effort here by the Christ Church of Orlando, the Salvation Army, and countless businesses in the Orlando area that have supported law enforcement and our efforts tremendously as their way of paying respect to the victims of this horrendous act. I'd also like to recognize the tremendous efforts of the FBI's evidence response team, who spent the last week processing the most devastating crime scene under circumstances that were very difficult. It's a life-changing experience for all of us, and they've done their duty quietly and among the most noble law enforcement professionals. As I mentioned earlier, this area is expected to be restored to relative normal business early this week, and we do not expect to hold any further press conferences from this location. Thank you. I'd now like to turn it over to Chief John Mina.
Thanks, Ron. Good morning. First, I want to say we appreciate the incredible patience that our community has. We know there are many questions, and people want to know what happened that night. The timeline released based upon radio communications clearly shows our officers were within the club within minutes and engaged the suspect in gunfire. And that's important because that engagement and that initial entry caused him to retreat, stop shooting, and barricade himself in the bathroom with hostages. So it's important to note that this started as an active shooter situation. Our officers took action and then transitioned into a barricade gunman hostage situation. So after that second exchange of gunfire, upon that initial entry of our officers, there was no other gunfire until the hostage rescue operation took place. So during that 3 hours, I just want to make sure everyone's clear on that, there was no gunfire. So during that time, our officers were intermittently in and out of that club, saving people, rescuing people from inside the club. That's another misconception. We were inside the club along with our fellow agency partners. And at some point during, as you see on the timeline, our officers were able to push an air conditioning through to one of the dressing rooms, and I believe saved 8 people out of that room. So I'm extremely proud of the heroic actions of our officers, and I am very confident they saved many, many, many lives that night. We continue to concentrate on the security of the crime scene, and eventually we'll open up roadways and businesses, but we ask that people please be patient with us on that. We're also concentrating on the many vigils and events and providing security for everyone and making sure everyone feels safe as well. And also our top priority at the City of Orlando is making sure our residents are safe and the reduction of crime. Again, I want to thank everyone for their patience as we go through this process, and I also want to thank the community for the huge outpouring of support for our local law enforcement who did a tremendous job in this situation. I'm going to turn it over to Orange County Sheriff Jerry Demings at this time.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning. You now heard about the timeline of events during the early morning hours of June the 12th. As you heard, that this has been a collaborative effort from the very beginning. I must say that the response of the Orlando Police Department and those initial responding law enforcement officers has been nothing less than short of being extraordinary. One of the reasons why the response was extraordinary is really because of the overall preparedness to deal with an incident like this. Prior to this crisis, our federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies have been preparing for this event. In fact, for years now, we have prepared to respond to a terror event. In recent months, our agencies have been involved in training our personnel to be able to rapidly respond to an active shooter incident. In terms of our overall preparedness, I want to talk a little bit about our partnership with the Department of Homeland Security. In September of 2014, in fact on September the 9th and September the 10th, we participated in a joint counterterrorism exercise that was held here in Orlando at the Orange County Convention Center. That exercise was designed to prepare us to respond to an active shooter situation involving mass casualties. On October the 28th of 2014, Department of Homeland Security Undersecretary General Francis Taylor visited our Central Florida Intelligence Exchange, which we refer to as our Fusion Center here locally. This is a tremendous asset to our region because our Fusion Center, the Central Florida Intelligence Exchange, has our federal, state, and local law enforcement partners who work daily regarding counterterrorism efforts in this community. During the events of June the 12th, the CFIX activated and was successful in disseminating substantial information to our law enforcement partners here within our region as well as across our nation. The Fusion Center has continued to be and play a vital role in the effort since that time. They have been involved in providing daily updates and situation reports to law enforcement partners. They've also provided daily counterterrorism reports and working with the FBI in this investigation. Their efforts will continue on a day-to-day basis. I will share with you that in this community, the citizens who live here should be confident by knowing that you have competent law enforcement authorities who are able to respond rapidly to any situation that we will be confronted with in the future. However, there are daily efforts to prevent a similar attack from occurring. That will be based solely on the collaboration between, again, our federal, state, and local law enforcement authorities. Let me move on now and talk just briefly about the first responders. Chief Mina mentioned the heroic acts of those first responders. We want to make certain that at this point we do take care of our personnel, because on that day they saw some very horrific things, and our goal is moving forward to ensure that they are provided with the diffusion as well as counseling sessions to ensure that to what extent we can minimize any PTSD type effects on them into the future. Again, I'm going to conclude by saying that our community remains a safe community, and we certainly support people coming in and visiting our community. It is a vibrant community, a resilient community, and much of what you have seen in the last few days and hours has been a reminder that this community is still here and willing and working together to make this a safe place for our families and our visitors here. Thank you so much.
Now we'll take questions.
Could you clarify something in the timeline? You said that there was no shooting after Gunman retreated to the boundary.
There was no shooting for that 3-hour period until the commencement of the hostage rescue operation.
Special Operation Hopper. 4:29 a.m. that we learned from the timeline. We learned that several witnesses that said that the gunman was present when several forces passed from the victim. And we went into the decision between
Well, during that time, we were ensuring that our explosive entry team had set the charge and everyone was ready for an explosive entry, so that does take time.
Special Agent Hopper, at your last update, you asked the public for help trying to figure out the most complete picture of the shooter and why he did it. These transcripts show he told you why he did it. He did it for the Islamic State. What good does it do redacting all of the mentions like
that influenced them, so we're not going to continue to put their names out front.
Does the FBI redact a lot of redact things from transcripts in many investigations, or is this?
I'm not familiar with the other investigations you may be referring to, but for this one, we think it's highly important.
Outside of 3 hours, there were shots fired at 2:08, exchange between the shooter and the police officers that responded, and then there were shots fired at 5:14 after the breach of the wall. During those two instances of gunfire, were there any casualties?
Repeat your question.
Outside of the 3 hours where there was no gunfire in the club, at 2:04, when there was initial exchange with the backup officers inside the club, and at 5:14 after the breach of wall, the final gunfire that killed the shooter, were there any casualties that resulted from that gunfire besides the shooter?
That's all part of the investigation. All of that is being reconstructed at this time.
It's very defensive as to responding to criticism. Can you explain what is it that you're responding to?
I don't understand what you're saying.
You all sound like you are responding to criticism of the response. You sound like there's something very specific that you're addressing. I'd like to know what that is.
Oh, I Absolutely. We received many comments from the press and from the public, some emails about, I think there was this misconception that we didn't do anything for 3 hours, and I'm just trying to clarify that's absolutely not true. Our officers were in the club within minutes, exchanged gunfire with the suspect, forced him to stop shooting and retreat into the bathroom. From there, we let our negotiator take over and try and negotiate this to a peaceful resolution in an effort to save lives while our SWAT team set up. So that's the issue for the clarification.
Was there any actual negotiations with the gunman? Can you help us understand?
Was there what?
Were there any actual negotiations back and forth with the gunman?
Some of that was released this morning.
Yes. Some of that was released earlier. Yes, there was. Our negotiator was talking with him.
Chief, how likely is it that some of the victims may have been shot and killed by police gunfire in the initial attempt to save lives?
That's all part of the investigation, but here's what I will tell you. Those killings are on the suspect, and on the suspect alone, in my mind. All that will be investigated. By our officers acted heroically and did as they were trained in an unbelievable circumstances and did a phenomenal job. Look at the question was, how difficult was it for me to make that decision? And I will tell you, just as the sheriff said, we have been training for this situation for many, many years, since Columbine, since 9/11. I knew our officers were ready. I knew our SWAT team members were ready. I knew our hospitals were ready. And yes, it's a very difficult decision to make, but it was the right decision at the right time. And I